Hey, good morning. So there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in nonprofit world right now. A lot of rumors flying around. I wanted to make a video to just kind of level set the situation and give you some tools as to what you can do. Starting by talking about fear versus preparation. Um, the fear that I've received over this Easter weekend and prior to it is really, truly unbelievable. And some of it will be justified. I'm not saying it's not. But if you're making decisions for your organization based out of fear, they're going to be reactionary decisions. They're going to be limited. Your attention is going to be narrowed in, and you are not going to be able to see the big picture that you need to see in order to make decisions as an executive director, as the principal of a family foundation, whatever. Fear-based decisions are not good decisions in this moment. So, encouraging you here to think very broadly, very expansively. Um, and to do that, you have to get out of a mindset of fear and into a mindset of preparation. Um, and preparation is just the thing that all of us do, whether we're afraid or not afraid, just to prepare for any outcome in any scenario. Um, the amount of preparation you do, there can always be more preparation that you can do. But the amount of preparation you do is bounded by your financial capacity, by your time capacity, by just like your convenience. You know, is a lot of different barriers on preparation and what that means. So within your own scope, I'm going to just talk about what are some of the things you can do to be thinking about government influence on nonprofits. So of immediate relevance, a couple of days ago, April 18th, the IRS whistleblower office now offers to pay up to 30% of their collections to anyone who files a claim against a charity. And so that leaves open a question for you. If an anonymous tip put you under IRS scrutiny tomorrow, would you be ready? The idea of government infiltration in nonprofits is not new. Um, Black Lives Matter protests had infiltrations, climate group audits, DEI crackdowns, um, and this new bounty system. And there's probably more to come. Uh, so, I'm going to talk about a couple of things to help you prepare for this moment. Disclaimer, of course, I'm not a lawyer. None of this is legal advice. Talk to your legal counsel about everything that I say. Double check, triple check it. Um, these are the opinions of one person and also do not necessarily represent the views of the company that Ami and I started called Chariot. One thing that Chariot does do is help people prepare for situations like this. We build resilience into impact organizations. So if you want to talk more about that, obviously let me know. Um, my last name, my first name at gmail.com is my email address. All right, so let's dive into it. So, a couple of things that might be obvious, but I'm going to talk about them. Your First Amendment rights are protected. You have the right to free speech, you have the right to free association. You also have the right to protect your donors and your members. This is going to come up a lot more, but it is your right. NAACP versus Alabama was the first case to kind of really set precedent. Most recently upheld in the Kindhart's case, or sorry, not in the Kindhart's case, in the AFPF and Banta case. Donor lists are legally shielded. The Kindhart case is also important because this is about seizing assets. The government needs a warrant and a notice to seize assets. Now, there's good news and bad news there. The good news is the government, the judicial system held up nonprofit rights in the Kindhart case. The bad news is it took them 3 years of legal battles. So there is, like I said, there's like time boundaries, financial boundaries. Um, Probably at this point about 501(c)(3) limits and protections like lobbying caps. It is important to know that lawful advocacy, the advocacy that you're doing as a regular part of your job, cannot trigger revocation of your 501(c)(3) rights. This is case law, it's established. Um, Important to know what your board's duty is, and we're going to talk about discussing things with your board a little bit later, but your board's duty is to your mission. It is not to politicians. It is not to the corporate laws. It is to the mission. And that is, there's legal nuance there, but in general, that's really important to just reaffirm. Your independence is a constitutional right. It is not a courtesy afforded you by the government. It is a right that is protected constitutionally. All right, so let's talk now about some of the risks and let's call it interferences. Um, if you are in a situation, most of you are not, but if you are in a situation where the work you are doing is, let's call it on the edge, a couple of things can happen. Covert infiltration. So people, this is the same thing as like corporate espionage on the corporate side, except for we're talking about government infiltration here. So informants posing as volunteers or as hires is a very common thing. This is not just the domestic U.S. federal government. There have been cases of, let's say, like Chinese actors coming in and trying to infiltrate political systems. So just always paying attention to the risk. It is small, but it does exist, the risk of corporate infiltration. Um, Another interference tactic that you'll see a lot, strings attached funding. This is a whole separate thing we can get into. But what I don't mean is like, oh, it's a restricted gift. I mean things like gag clauses, forced board seats, pledges that attach the organization to a particular political objective, bans on particular ideologies. You're going to start to see things like that pop up and creep up. Just pay attention to it. You always have the right to say yes or no to any contribution. And I can tell you from personal experience, far better to say no to something that makes you queasy than to say yes and regret it later. Surveillance is going to be really important. Data grabs. So you're going to see donor list demands, you know, geofence warrants, Freedom of Information Act type things. No matter, it's hard to get specific because a lot of different people listening to this are in a lot of different places. But the world runs on data. It's a resource just like information and time, and it is a resource like time and money. Information and data is a resource like time and money. So do what you need to do to protect your data within legal and appropriate bounds. Uh, you know, Obvious examples that have been in the news recently are things like using Signal for text messages. Check with your own circumstances, but Signal for text messages, Proton Mail for email, and just using a modicum of caution can go a long way if you are doing things that are particularly sensitive. Regulatory harassment, this is almost certainly coming. Surprise audits, frozen bank accounts, hostile legislation. Uh, you know, Pay as much attention as you can to the regulatory environment. There's probably just going to be a few examples that are brought into the light and really harassed, and you don't know if you're going to be one of those examples. So make sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed in the regulatory environment. And of course, we already mentioned that whistleblower claim, which incentivizes personal and political score setting. So just some things to watch. if you have like an overeager newcomer who's like, wow, I really would love to see more of the fundraising data, it could just be like a, you know, neurotic student who's really excited about, you know, donor data, or it could be something more serious. In either way, you don't need to be granting access to people who don't need access. Um, Watch for conditional grants that try to gag you. Watch for audits or subpoenas right after you release some kind of public criticism. In fact, I would prepare for it as part of your public criticism plans. Um, your IT team should be watching for abnormal logins, deleted files, and then rumors and leaks. It's this gets dangerous because I really do want to emphasize this preparation versus fear point. But there's kernels of truth in a lot of rumors, and they can give you a hint of what to prepare for. Um, this becomes more practical here. Shields you can build. Number one, treat your board as governance armor. They should be mission anchored. They should have a variety of skill sets and opinions and ideologies. They should have a very robust conflict of interest policy. I highly, highly recommend, if your board is able to do this, that you have a risk committee or an audit committee just to flag anomalies, things that might go wrong. Everybody kind of has that annoying board member who's like only sees problems. This is a good opportunity to channel that energy into something that's actually very productive, where they can flag those risks, and it's part of their job, not part of the inconvenience of having that board member on the board. You should have a hotline protocol. It doesn't literally have to be a hotline, but what that means is that anybody who is approached by any member of law enforcement, there should be like a bat signal sent immediately to the board chair and to your legal counsel. And oh, by the way, get legal counsel. If you haven't already identified your attorney yet, make sure you identify an attorney. If you want to carry this forward even more, you can do things like role play unannounced law enforcement visits, role play a suspicious staff question, things like that. Be careful of this again, because I don't want it to dip into the fear mongering. It should just be preparation. And as soon as it slips in, it's a very, very subtle thing we're dealing with here. But as soon as it slips into fear, it becomes not useful. So if it is coming from a place of abundance, this is a really useful thing to do. But you just have to judge the parameters of this based on your own staff and their headspace right now. Obvious things: data access on a need to know basis, two-factor authentication, encrypted communications, I already mentioned. Just reiterate that you are there to support your team with technology. You want to have a setup standard operating practice for subpoenas, especially if you're a slightly larger organization. Your legal counsel can help you with this. It's having gone through one of these before, a couple of times actually. It's more annoying than it is anything else, but it is important. The Federalist Society has placed a lot of people in Doge. Just like, I mean, the law will be wielded as a weapon here, and the inconvenience is as much of a problem as the actual legal case itself. So just be prepared for subpoenas and know what to do if you receive a subpoena. Your gift acceptance policy is probably already in place. Just double check on that. Make sure that you are refusing funds that limit your speech or refusing funds that embed outsiders. Talk to the ACLU. If something comes up, they will be very busy. The Alliance for Justice, state legal associations, have your legal counsel on retainer. Do what you need to do. To talk also about the resistance part of this. I would identify a core crisis team. Usually that's the ED, board chair, council, communications. So some version of that, whatever that is for you. These are the people that are talking to each other actively when the house is burning down. Things that you are doing that are controversial, you do not want to be the one hiding evidence. You want to be the one preserving evidence. So hold tight to your story because you are on the side of truth here, I imagine. Build a fact timeline as you are doing whatever it is you're doing that could be controversial. We did this on this day. We did this on this day. We did this on this day. All of that prep work is going to help you so much later on. In the case of a crisis situation, you will want to have a plan for briefing your donors, your staff, your partners. Start to get those communication plans in place ahead of time. You would be wanting to, especially if you're a very public-facing organization, you want to be crafting a public narrative. Prepare to frame your defense as a defense of civil society. Line up moral witnesses. Use verifiable facts. Moral witnesses are people who are trusted that are proxies for like, oh, well, if they believe it, it must be true. Just going to quickly run through my list here. We've talked about a lot of this already. An escalation ladder is something your legal counsel can guide you through, but usually it's something like starts with like quiet negotiation, a public statement, litigation, media campaign, civil disobedience. You can go through these steps and prepare for like how I escalate every time. Many of you are running on tight cash reserves. Again, if you are in a system where your fundraising system needs help, talk to us. We can help you with that. But I would hope that you would have at least a 3-month cash reserve. Try to get it up to 6 months. If you are a frontline organization, I think a year is very appropriate, and you can communicate that to your donors about why you're doing that. This is just, you don't know what's coming. It's good to be prepared for what's coming. I think it's important to remember here that your work is worth defending. And it's not just because there might be a political component to it. It's that you are feeding families, defending rivers, protecting the civil rights of our most vulnerable populations. This is work that's worth defending. I highly suggest that you audit your governance, that you train your staffers, and that you connect with other allies who are in similar places so you can swap plans back and forth. Our independence as a sector is not a luxury. It is the foundation that keeps this house standing. If you guard it now, the people you serve will never stand alone. Thank you.